let's get to my favorite segment. It's the equipment segment. And product number 1 on today's list is the Matrox Monarch HD. That's this box right here. It's pretty small. It's about the size of, I don't know, 2 cigarette packs put together. On the front, you'll notice a couple of important things. You've got USB, outputs 1 and 2, and then an SD card slot. That's in case you want to record. That's in case you want to record what's going on either to a USB hard drive or to an SDHC card. On the back, you've got HDMI input. You've got HDMI input, HDMI output, and then if you weren't going to be embedding audio, you could use these analog audio input device, analog audio output. Right now, I happen to be embedding audio through HDMI, so I don't have anything connected there. Additionally, you've got an Ethernet jack. That's because you can record your video to a network hard drive, or you can stream live video. Now back on the front, you see that there are 2 buttons, 1 button for stream and 1 button for record. Once you've got all your settings right, all you got to do is hit that record button, and your selected record source will start recording your video and your audio. So that's the record button. There's also a stream button. You can start and stop your live stream just by hitting that button. Now, you might be saying to yourself, how much does this cost? And the answer is $9.95. So if you've got yourself a television production studio, say you've got like a Blackmagic switcher or some kind of lower cost Panasonic switcher that doesn't have an awesome way of integrated recording and streaming, for under $1,000, you can add this product to your studio and you get the added benefits of streaming and recording. Maybe you're saying to yourself, oh, I've already got a KeyPro, or I've already got a Pix 240 and I can record my media in super high frame rate, super high bit rate. I don't need a Matrox. But think about this. When you're going to upload your footage to the internet later on, you've got to be thinking about what your client is going to be viewing it on. Are they watching on their iPhone, like all of our clients watching jtown.tv on their iPhones? Are they going to be watching from their laptop computer? If they are, chances are they're watching over the internet, and they're going to need a lower bit rate. You can't stream ProRes HQ444 at 440 megabits per second. You need to come all the way down to something like 6 megabits per second, 2 megabits per second. We're talking internet codec here, right? The Matrox will do MP4 or MOV files. You can select that, and we'll guide you through it in just a second. But importantly, the Matrox can do either MP4 or MOV recordings, and you can go anywhere from 500 kilobits per second to about 50 megabits per second. So the sweet spot is about 2 megabits per second. In fact, if you're watching this episode on jtown.tv and it's after 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 19th, then what you're watching has been recorded right here on this SDHC card. Pretty fantastic. We're recording it at 640 by 360 at 2 megabits per second, or excuse me, we're recording at 1 megabit per second, which is very difficult to achieve using these ProRes and DNX HD recorders. This little mini recorder, highlight of it, you can record in low bit rate so that it's perfect to immediately upload to the internet for on-demand viewing. So let's take a look at how easy it is to set up the Matrox Monarch HD. Let's go to slide number 1, please. Here is your status slide. This is where you'd get a warning that says, hey, you don't have any video input. Right now you can see that the message is clear. There are no video input warnings. Just above that you can see my record codec. This isn't the live look. This is an old one where we were testing, but you can see I had set it up for 640 by 360. That's a 16 by 9 resolution there, and looks something like 700 or 800 kilobits per second. Perfect for uploading to the internet later on. So this is a good look of where you can see what the state of your recorder is. This is a web page served up by the Matrox Monarch HD. You just connect a computer to the same network hub that the Matrox is connected to, and you have access to all of these settings. Let's check out our record settings page. So here's our record settings page. This is where you can do things like save or load a profile. Now, a profile consists of whether or not you're recording in, see down on the bottom, you've got the MOV or MP4 selection. You've also got an opportunity to determine where the recording is going. On the bottom, you'll see it's set to my SD card. I could change that to USB 1 or USB 2 if I wanted to go to a USB hard drive. I could also change that to network. Over the Ethernet port, I could record to a network-attached hard drive, which is Pretty cool if you've got a big network and you're just going to store your footage somewhere remotely. Above that is all of your resolution and codec information. So you can see I set my width to 640, my height to 380. We've selected full frame rate. You can go into a lower frame rate, but I definitely don't recommend that. And just below the frame rate is where you put in your bit rate. So as I mentioned, you know, you've got to be considering who's watching your videos. If they don't have a super fast 20 megabit per second connection, then you've got to bring your recording codec all the way down to something like 750 kilobits per second, 1 megabit per second, something that's going to be easy enough for both their internet connection and the graphics card on their computer to munch through while they're watching your on-demand videos. So back towards the top of that page, can we see the record settings once more? Back towards the top of that page, you'll see that you can save up to about 5 different presets. So once you've got something that you like, you can save it in here and recall it later on so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You'll notice that we named this one our J-Town recording codec, just an easy way for us to keep track of it. So you might be saying to yourself, all right, so great, I can record either to an SDHC card or to a USB device. Well, how long can I record? How much storage is this going to take? Well, I've got just the chart for you. There it is. Let's just look specifically at the bottom, all right? Because what are people going to use? They're going to use their 32 gig SDHC Class 10 cards. Look over to the second column where it's 20,000 kilobits per second, aka 2 megabits per second. The important stats there are, on a 32 gig card, you can record 35 hours of video. I mean, that is just, that's like a whole year's worth of the Dot Video show right there. Pretty fantastic. When you crunch it down to the lower bit rates, obviously you're going to have a lot of space on your cards. One other important size to look at is the 4 gigabit size. Why do I bring that up? Well, you can format your SDHC cards either in the NTFS file space or in the FAT32 file space. Okay, the Monarch HD is compatible with both Macs and PCs. The little gotcha is, if you select the FAT32 file space, then you can only record up to 4 gigabytes per file. All right, now looking at the chart, 4 gigabytes per file means you're going to get 4.4 hours at 2 megabits per second. So even if you're in the FAT32, the more restrictive of the two codecs, on a 4 gig file size, you're going to get 4.4 hours of 2 megabit per second video. Now, when you put your video up on the internet at 2 megabits per second, it's going to look great, and more importantly, it's going to stream easily to your client devices. Pretty fantastic stuff. Now, in a moment, we're going to take a look at the streaming page. The streaming page is going to look a whole lot like the recording page, because first you've got to select your resolution, 640 by 380, 1920 by 1080, whatever you're going to stream at. Then you've got to select your bit rate. Again, we're going to select something in the neighborhood of 2 megabits per second. But the addition on the streaming page, if you can bring that up for me, is your streaming server information. Now, the Matrox Monarch HD is capable of both an RTSP pull kind of server, and it's compatible with an RTMP push kind of server. So if you're pushing out to your CDN, probably going to be RTMP. You put in your login name and your password, and you're streaming live right from the Matrox Monarch HD. So again, on the streaming page, you can select a codec different from the codec that you're recording in. Maybe you want to record in a slightly higher codec than your live streaming codec. You can activate a different codec for streaming than you're recording, and then simultaneously stream and record from the same box. You can come on back to the camera. That's not that interesting. Finally, in the settings, you will have an audio page. I don't even need to show you this, but the audio page just determines whether you're using audio embedded on the HDMI or if you're using audio separately from an analog input source. So a little bit of diversity on the inputs. We would love to see a pro version of the Matrox Monarch HD that maybe you can use SDI. SDI importantly has those locking connectors that we love. Additionally, we might want to be able to record maybe 2 codecs simultaneously, sort of one to the SDHC card and one to the USB connected hard drive. The Monarch HD does have USB 2.0 and USB 3.0 connectivity, so your later G-Tech hard drives that are like, eSATA and USB 3.0 or whatever, those are going to be perfect for this. Make sure that they're formatted either in FAT32 or NTFS. Go ahead and connect with your laptop over the Ethernet to make sure all your settings are right in the Monarch HD, and then for $995, you're streaming and recording. Make sure to call your friends at Midtown Video. We've got them in stock, we know how to use them, and we can help you develop your own codecs to get your production live and on demand on the internet. All right? Pretty awesome. Thank you guys all for tuning in. This is just another quick shout out to the hardworking team here at the Dot Studio at Midtown Video. If you've got a question for us, we do have Debbie sitting in the studio audience with our chat monitor. She can get your questions answered live on air.